It's Lydia and I'm here today in my room and I'm going to be doing a video on lesson plans. Sorry for the disaster that is my hair. It was curled yesterday and my hair's straight, and then today when I woke up it was like this, and I'm not gonna fix it because I don't want to. It's also raining, so hopefully you can't hear the thunder. I may need to stop. Okay, give me 1 second. I'm gonna play this video back and I'm gonna see if you can hear it, because if you can, I'm gonna stop and I'm gonna record later. 1 second. I think we're going to be okay. I'm not 100% sure. We'll see how this works out. I just closed the window so that it wasn't as loud. Okay, so lesson plans. I every year teach pretty much everything in the curriculum. The only thing that sometimes gets changed a little bit is that I might not teach language. Last year I taught math, French, science, social studies. I taught every subject except for language, and that's only because my partner teacher would teach language while I taught her class French. This year, fortunately, I was able to teach everything, so that's what I prefer. But if I do have to choose between teaching language and math, which I usually get a choice if I'm only supposed to be teaching one or going to be teaching one. There's a fluff in my hair. I usually enjoy teaching math. So, sorry, I'm like a little bit flustered, but I have some things here that I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to go through one of the math lesson plans that I've done in the past. So here in Canada, one of our biggest focuses in my school board is math. Now, we have a very strong focus on the 3-part lesson plan in math. And we also talk about 3-part lesson planning in language, but most people hear it more frequently in math. So when we talk about the 3-part lesson plan, what it's really getting into is getting the kids to understand something before they learn. Then they have some sort of task that they do during their learning, and then there's also some sort of consolidation or reflection that happens after learning or after the lesson has been taken. Now, I just have some stuff written down on my phone so that I remember what I should be saying or what I'm going to be saying. So when we talk about before learning, it's talking about the students getting ready to learn. So the students get mentally ready to work on a specific task that's going to be given to them, and they're sure to understand that all the expectations for that lesson and for the unit that you are going to be teaching are understood. So essentially what we're doing is we're coming up with a list of criteria that the students will get to use throughout the lesson, throughout the unit, which they can then refer back to so that they are mentally prepared for their learning. During this before section of the lesson, there's also something that we like to call minds on. Now, when we talk about minds on, it's basically just an introduction question to the task that's going to be taught. Now, at that point in the lesson, it's really just let the kids go, let them explore, give them a question, have them work it out in whichever way they feel they want to work it out. At this point, a lot of teachers have some difficulty because it's strange for you to kind of sit back and not feed your students hints of how they should or shouldn't be answering a question. It's more so that kind of mini diagnostic that you would do before you are before you start teaching them a lesson. So it's kind of a get to know what they know time. After the before part of the lesson, then we move to the during section. Now at this point in the lesson, what I like to call it is the action or the take action portion of your lesson. I would do a mini lesson with my class and do a little bit of background information on a certain concept that we would be learning in class, and then what we would do is I would model one myself with the students, then the students would do it with a partner and with me as well, at the same time. And then what I do is I give them a question and I let them go out with their partners to do this action portion. Now this action portion, sometimes I split it up into multiple sections depending on how intense the concept is. I will do action, take action part 1, take action part 2, take action part 3. It just depends on the lesson and the concept that you're learning. So during this portion, you have to really make sure the students are ready to learn, that they understand what topics they're going to be learning after they do their minds on. Then what they're going to do is make sure that they are listening very carefully during your mini lesson so that they understand the steps that need to be taken in order to complete the action or the take action part successfully. And then what you do as the teacher is you observe and assess the students as they're working through it. Now, we're not really assessing them in the sense that you're going to give them a mark, but you're assessing them in a way that they're looking at the criteria that you came up with. They are using all the strategies that you had just taught them in your mini lesson, and now they are applying them with their partner or individually to the question at hand. I'm thirsty. Oh, thunder. This stuff is good. I think they discontinued it, which is sad. Okay, part 3 of the lesson is the after, or the reflection or consolidation. I like calling it a consolidation or reflection because the students tend to know what that is more when you say those words. Reflection can sometimes sound a little bit daunting to the students, especially if they're not ones who enjoy writing, because the word reflection might kind of scare them. So I like using the word consolidation because you're consolidating or having the students consolidate their learning. So during this portion of the lesson, what ends up happening is that we had already done our minds on, we've done our take action, we've taken up all of the information, we've worked through the questions together. Now, for the consolidation, what happens is I usually have the kids sit on the carpet or sit in a circle around me and we talk about what we've learned. I also have math question cards, and we talk about different concepts, how we used our prior knowledge to help us solve this problem, and also how to do the steps that we took in order to solve this problem. So I think the most important part of the entire lesson is the consolidation, because that's when you are able to do your anecdotal assessments of the students' learning, because they are sharing not only with you but also their peers and their partners all the stuff that they did in order to be successful and answer the question that you had given them. Now, when I do this with my class, what ends up happening is this takes about an hour to do this. I usually only give the students 1 or 2 questions per period when we are doing our math lessons. Now, the reason why I do this is because the questions that I use are very open-ended and they have multiple possibilities. Now, open-ended questions for students can be a little bit scary, especially if they're a lot younger, but you, as the teacher, just train them into thinking and working in that way. It gets them using their prior knowledge a lot more. It gets them talking, it gets them up, it gets them moving, because they are constantly going from here to there, getting different manipulatives, using different tools, talking to their peers, talking to their teachers, talking to whoever in order to figure out what they need. So that's kind of a little overview of what a 3-part lesson math lesson plan kind of is, if you weren't sure or had never heard of it before, or don't do something like this in your school, your school board, your district, your country, wherever you're watching from. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just show you some of the things that I like to use. Now, my favorite math resource is anything by Marion Small. Now, if you don't know who Marion Small is, you need to go and you need to do some research and you need to learn about this woman because she is amazing. So my favorite book currently is this one here by Marion Small. It's Marion Small Open Questions for the 3-part lesson. Now, this is on number sense and numeration. She also has one for measurement, patterning, and data management. Now this one is K to 3. This one is 4 to 8 grade levels. I have this in the K to 3 as well. I have all of the math strands that we do here in Canada in the junior and intermediate levels of math, because there's different questions, and even though this is a grade 8 question, just for example, you could always change it and make it appropriate for grade 3, 4, 5. So you're getting double the questions. Now these books are not super expensive. I would just suggest maybe purchasing one, seeing if you like it, and then committing to the other ones, because when you buy all of them all at once, they do get expensive. Number sense is probably the best way to start, I would assume. If you're in Canada, this is great. They also have Common Core standards if you are from the United States. This is not just a Canadian resource, which is awesome, but they still have similar questions or the same concept of the 3-part math lesson plan. So I'm just going to open the book right now, and I'm going to show you the inside and how it's set up. So in this book, what it does is, this is the 4 to 8, and when you open it, there is all of your grade levels. So you have 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, and it also breaks up your grade levels into the different items or the different topics that you would be teaching in that grade. So you have grade 4, whole numbers to 10,000, fractions and decimals, addition and subtraction, multiplication and division. But it has it for all of them. Now, when you go through each section, there's an introduction that kind of goes over everything. You have grade 4. Now, I'm looking at whole numbers for this one because I have a lesson that I'm going to show you that I did with my class, but it has your whole numbers to 1,000, and then it also tells you what the students should be doing by the end of this grade. Now, we have our minds on, our action, and then our consolidation. Now, the best part of this is your minds on are your icebreaker activities that kind of get the students rolling into what you are going to be teaching. Your action are some of the questions that will let the students dig a little bit deeper into the concept that they had just learned in their mini lesson. And then the consolidation is the questioning portion where the students have an opportunity to reflect on what they have learned. So I'm going to go through one of the lessons that I've created for my class now, and I'm going to do a kind of a step-by-step of how I would do this. Now, this is the lesson that I would have given my class, and the first section right here, as you can see, says minds on part 1. So the question that I have written here is 1,000 can be described as 10 hundreds. What are some other ways you can describe 1,000 without saying that it's big? And then when it's underneath, it says use your place value chart and pictures as a hint. So then I leave a little area underneath here so that the students can have some room, and I give them time to just explore. So another way that they could say 1,000 is they can say 1,000 ones. They can also talk about how many tens, how many hundreds, and then they can also talk about how many thousands if they're talking about base 10 blocks. They can also say that 1,000 if they are familiar with fractions, they can use fractions, but it gives them an opportunity to think about the number 1,000 and how we can describe it in as many different ways as possible. So once they have completed that, we go over it, we take up all of the answers that the students got, and we move on to our part 2 of the minds on. Now, part 2 of the minds on this case, I made one because I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into discussing or talking about how we can represent different numbers. So on here, it says, I'm gonna zoom in here so you can see it. Hopefully it's not backwards. So for this second part of this minds on, the question that I gave them, as you saw when I just showed you on the screen, is in your groups, create a number that includes 2 digits that are 5s and 2 digits that are 4. Make sure that one of the 5s is worth 10 times as much as the other 5, and one of the 4s is worth 100 times as much as the other 4. Now, this is again a second question So we would have already talked about different multiples and how one number can be 100 times more than another and all that stuff. So if you find that that's a little bit difficult, what you could do is you can say it's 1 times more or a couple times, however you want to do it. But that's the question. My phone's ringing. Be right back. It was my brother. Okay, so yeah, so that's the part 2 of the minds on, and I make the question a little bit harder, but I still, at this point, I'm not really guiding them through the question. I'm not really telling them how they should be answering it. I kind of just want to see how they would answer it, because it's really interesting to see how each one of the students or each group of students does it differently. Okay, moving on. So the next part of our section, this is the next page, is the take action. Now, this is the part after you do your minds on, you don't just jump right into the take action. What you do is you do a mini lesson on the concept that you are going to be teaching. You somewhat take up the minds on, but not completely, because you don't want the students to dwell on the minds on. You kind of want them to just think about the new concept and how they're going to apply it in the future. So you don't just jump right into the take action. You have to do a mini lesson on your concept, because the next section, which is the take action, is going to be a little bit trickier, and it's going to have more steps and multiple things that the students are going to need to do. So after I do my minds on and after I do my mini lesson, we're now into the take action. So the question that I came up for this one was, if you and your friends just won the lottery, $50,000. Wow. Now that you have all this money, you are going to buy a car of your dreams. And then I asked them, go to autotrader.ca and start looking. Your goal. And I always make the your goal section a lot bigger so that they can understand that that's the part that is important, okay? So I said, find 4 cars or 3 cars. Wait. Yeah, find 3 cars that are over $1,000 but under $50,000. Write the value of each house in 4 different ways using the place value chart, and then tell me what made you pick this car. Did I say house? Weird. Car. They're looking for cars. So car number 1, it says on the bottom here, car number 1, and then it says car make, car year, car color, car price, and then I have a place value chart down here. So what they're going to do is they're going to write their number in standard form, in expanded form, in word form, and then at the very bottom I want them to draw it in base 10. Now, this is the lesson that I'm talking about. Before they get into this, you would have had to pre-teach place value. This would be your second lesson for your whole numbers unit. So the students would have already been introduced to place value, but right after your mind's on, when you're doing your mini lesson, is when you would talk about place value and maybe even introduce this place value chart so the students aren't super confused. So what I did was I had them do 1, then there's car 2, car 3, same thing, and then on the bottom we have car 4. After they're done all of that, they would do that with a partner. They could do it in a group. They can do it independently. It's up to you how you decide you want them to do it. What I tend to do after every student is done, all 3 cars, I like to do 1 myself together with the class and have them talk me through what I'm supposed to do if they're working in groups. So that I can understand, or I can see that they understand what the difference is between standard form, expanded form, written form, and base 10 form. Now, my favorite part, consolidation. Once you're done, your minds on, your mini lesson, your take action, and now you're moving into consolidation, what I do is I sit on the carpet with my class and we talk about what we did. We talk about all the things that we've learned. We talk about all the stuff we already knew. We talk about all the past math that we use, or the past knowledge that we knew we use in order to help us solve these problems. Once we have this conversation on the carpet, this usually takes about 10 to 15 minutes, which is a long time, I understand that, but when you're talking about this with your students, they tend to get really into it, especially if they really get it and you've really taken time to go over the concepts and really explain to them why it's important. So, once they're done the consolidation and we've had our discussion, they go back to their seats, and this part I let them do it on their own because I want them to do a reflection on their own and tell me what they have learned. I don't want them to tell me what their group had done. I want them to tell me for themselves as an individual learner what they have learned. So this is the page. It's 4 questions. No, not 4 questions. It's only 3 questions, and it's a mini reflection page. And as you can see, it just says reflection, or you can write consolidation. Now, for this specific lesson, the questions that I've asked are, after looking at the cars, which one would you consider buying and why? And that was one of the questions that I had them think about from the very, very beginning. The second question is, why might it be useful to use expanded form when looking at large numbers? So I really want them to think about why expanded form is important and why it's important to know, especially when you're using such big numbers that are over 1,000 and closer to 1 million or 100,000. The third question is, what do you know for sure about a number if you say the word 1,000, but you do not say the word 100 when you read it? And what that question's asking them is, do they understand that on a place value chart, if you say the word 1,000 and you don't say the word 100, that there are 0 hundreds on place value? Now, I give them enough room to write their answer, but a lot of the time, sorry, this is like really washed out. A lot of the time, what ends up happening is I need to give them even more paper because a lot of the students like to draw out their answers, which is totally fine. If they don't want to write it, that's fine. Especially for this bottom section, it might be easiest to use a place value chart to explain it. Okay, so I kind of really motored through that. Hopefully that made some sense. And I really enjoy doing math like this. I find that I used to do math the way that I was taught math, or teach math the way that I was taught math, and I hated it. The kids hated it. It was never fun. It was always boring. And there were students who were done almost immediately because they're just answering questions over and over and over again, same kind of concept. And it's mostly memorization work instead of applying what they actually know. So doing math in this way with the 3-part lesson really gets them engaged, and I find that whenever I teach math, there is never any downtime or lag time, and there is rarely any students who say, "Miss, I'm done, what do I do now?" Because it is so structured in the way that you move throughout the lesson, and there's multiple checkpoints throughout the lesson, that it doesn't allow the students to rush, and it doesn't allow them to sit there and do nothing. I really enjoy this type of math lesson planning. I think it is my favorite thing to do, and like I said, it gets the kids engaged, and that's the most important part. And it also lets them know that even if they don't like math, or they say that they're, "Oh, I'm bad at math," when you do math in this way, it allows the students to be successful because they're working at their own rate and they're using the concepts that they understand. You're not telling them this is the way you need to do it and this is the only way that you need to do it and that's it. Move on with your life if you don't get it. No. In this case, during the Minds On, the students are really able, the students are really able to think about what they are supposed to be doing before they even get to the actual work, which is what I love so much about it. Okay, so I think I'm done talking about this. Once again, the math books or math resources that I would suggest are anything by Marion Small. If you have not heard of her, or if you've never experienced any of her resources, please go and do that. She is amazing. I will leave a link below. I will leave a link below to this one, Canadian and Common Core, so that anybody who is American or from the United States is able to take a look at it as well. And if you guys want me to post this math lesson that I created, let me know. Send me a message, comment down below, and I will just send it to you. It also comes with a Google Slides lesson that I made with it to go in between all of the different sections, so it's better explained. But if you would like the Google Slides and this lesson or these worksheets or these papers for them to do their work, just send me a message on here, on Instagram, wherever, and I will just email it to you. Yeah, so thank you for watching. Please make sure you comment, like, subscribe, follow me on Instagram. It's at learning.with.lids with a Z. All of my information will be in the down bar. Thank you so much. Sorry for the rain and me talking super fast. I'm not used to this whole sitting in front of a camera and talking thing. But yes, I will talk to you guys later. Bye.